Hello, hello. Today we are here with a very special interview with Melissa. I met Melissa at the Hearts of Beauty in Oklahoma, and she stood out to me in such a special way. They were recognizing the women in the room for the ones who have come the longest, the woman who was the youngest, and then the woman who was there that was the oldest. And enter in Melissa. She's celebrating 75 years young. And I thought, what an inspiration, because there's so many reasons that keep us from going to events, doing something different, expanding our comfort zones. And there's lots of reasons we can remove ourselves or just say, nah, maybe next time. And she didn't. And so I got to meet with her and meet her precious daughter in love, Miss Lily. And Lily came up to me and was like, "You got the prize for the furthest away." Because I'm from Michigan, she's from Arizona, and it was not very far in distance, and I absolutely loved my gift. And then I got to meet Lily, who is connected to Melissa. So today we're going to hear more about Melissa and her heart and her experiences in life and what brought her to being willing to go to an event because it wasn't her first event. And so we get to learn a little bit more in that side of Melissa. So share with us a little bit more about you, your experience, and what you want to share.
Okay. Um, First of all, I was raised in a very loving home, so I couldn't relate to any of the girls who'd had trouble with that. We went to the Methodist church in my childhood, and everything was just as it should be. I was in a happy, loving, and secure home. I was the youngest of three daughters. Well, I still am the youngest of three daughters. And my parents were married for over 60 years before we lost our mother to cancer. Uh, I married my sophomore year of college and became a mother at the age of 20. So I started off very young, very naive, I might add. My husband was from a strict Baptist family. His father was the head of the family, and his mother was a submissive wife, as expected from them. And that was clearly what they expected for us. We were both young and naive and worked to make them happy, not really knowing what to expect in a marriage. Um, I knew what my parents had had, but it was totally different from what John's parents had. And to be sure, we went to church. They wanted us to come to their house, which was 90 miles away, every weekend. Most weekends we went, and one Sunday, their small Baptist church was having a revival, and I gave my heart to Jesus. We joined the Baptist church close to our home, and I was baptized. My husband became a deacon, and I was active in the Baptist women's group and taught Sunday school and 3-year-olds. And our pastor came to us and asked us to start a young married Sunday school class. And we felt like we were in the right place, right where we needed to be. Our church was growing by leaps and bounds. It was very small when we started. It had a chapel, and now it's got a big auditorium, and it's really grown over the years. But my let's see, where am I? During a witnessing campaign that our church was having, they had I was involved in it also, but they had they had taken like two people for a group to go around to witness on Wednesday nights. And um, my husband was teamed up with one of the ladies that was in the young married group. She began to work on him about how awful her marriage was. And he being very naive was attacked by Satan, and he didn't even see it. I would let's see. I was the high school kids. I was with the high school kids at church camp, and he's at home getting involved with her. We'd been married for 13 years, which is kind of funny because now I have met many people who have gotten divorced after 13 years. It really is an unlucky number. Our boys were 12 and 9, very hard ages for them to go through this. And our whole church knew about it, and they were devastated by it, just like us. We were the first ones to get divorced, I think, in the whole church. Uh, anyway, I never thought the word divorce. It never came to my mind ever. I was never going to get a divorce, but suddenly here it was, and it came to that. I I waited for a long time, a year and a half. I put up with what he was doing, thinking he was just going to snap out of it, but he didn't. And finally, I filed for divorce. And it took me that long to realize he wasn't going to change and he was willing to give up his family. It was heartbreaking. The real blow came when I went to see our pastor for help in dealing with all this. And he was so close to John and our situation. He said he couldn't help me. He didn't know what to do. Well, if he couldn't give me some guidance, who could? I felt so betrayed that I left my church home. At that point, I became a single mother, working with working with two boys. It was a difficult 5 years before I met my second husband, and we were married a year later. My boys were teenagers now and didn't have a close relationship with their dad, but developed a good relationship with their stepdad. That's where Lily comes in. Just a second. My oldest son, Andy, Lily's husband. A second. Thought I could do this.
It's okay. It's okay. Take a breath. Squeeze your butt cheeks.
Okay, got it.
That helps every time.
Funny, it did. Okay. Okay. My oldest son, Andy, Lily's husband, was killed in a motorcycle accident in 2003, just a month and a half after they were married. My heart literally hurt. I could feel it hurt. And so did Lily's. I had just met her the weekend that they got married, so I didn't really know her very well. But Andy had loved her, so I did too. When I got the call at 6 o'clock in the morning, from her and a police detective, it was the biggest nightmare I could have ever imagined. God changed my life over his death. You can't imagine the feelings that consume you when you lose a child. I didn't understand why. When Andy was the happiest he'd been in years, God would take him. Through our grieving process and two funerals, one for his friends in Phoenix, one for his friends growing up here, and all of our family. Um, After two funerals, I realized I had received a huge blessing and a gift from Andy. I had a daughter named Lily. Okay. When we arrived in Phoenix, we found a mess of a young bride that was totally devastating. She was curled up in her bed, and all she wanted was someone to hold on to. Seems like this was yesterday. I laid down with her, and we held on to each other and cried until we were too weak to cry anymore. The bond was so incredible. God knew exactly what we both needed. We had both lost Andy, and we would always share that. Her relationship with her mother was not good. She claimed me as a mother figure that she had always wanted. At the same time, she was the daughter I had always hoped for. I feel like God used our terrible situation to save Lily. She wasn't always the beautiful light she is today. She has grown more beautiful and loving as her journey in Christ has grown. And we have a bond that will never be broken. All of this to say, Lily is one of the reasons I came to Hearts of Beauty at this stage in my life. Lily has remained, and not remained. She's remarried. I can't see the words. and has a daughter, 15 years old. I remarried after 6 years of being single and have been married for 38 years to the most wonderful man. I gained a daughter and a son from this marriage, and our family has grown to 11 grandkids and say 7 great grandkids. As you can imagine, my life is full of love and joy. This doesn't mean everything is perfect. Satan is constantly trying to disrupt our lives, especially when we are content and off guard. We have had some really real trials in the last few years, but God has gotten us through them, and we are stronger now. You asked me why I came to Hearts of Beauty. It is simple, really, because Lily asked me to. I had some things I knew I had buried and needed to turn over to God. That was another reason. And getting to share this time and experience with Lily was so awesome. I usually get to see her once a year at Thanksgiving. That's Andy's birthday, so she always comes then to celebrate his day too. I told her when she called me, I needed to think about it. Leaving my 81-year-old husband worried me a bit. I figured I'd be the oldest person attending, and she said, "Oh no, you won't." I was right. It was okay. I just wish I could have done more physically. It was such a beautiful place. I would have liked to have walked around the whole thing and just, but limitations. I knew I'd get a lot from going, but it was more than I expected. No matter where you are in life and what you have endured, you can still learn and change for the better. God spoke to me throughout the weekend. The years between my marriages were crazy, and I still felt guilt and regret from that time. I believe I have finally accepted God's forgiveness, and He has set me free. You always have things happen to us that we don't understand. I constantly remind myself that God has a plan for our lives, and we need to be ready to trust His plan. I learned a lot about myself at the retreat. I'm not the only one dealing with things in my life that are hurtful and regretful. The girls did an amazing job sharing their stories, and we were privileged to hear them. It was fantastic. And now that's the end of it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, there's so much.
I know. I thought I thought I could read that without crying, but I was wrong.
That's okay. It's okay. I think it's such a recognizing that we all have stories.
We
And I,
do.
and I too felt like absolutely blown away by the testimonials, thinking, how many times in life we think, oh, this is terrible. And then we learn that somebody has it 10 times. And we wouldn't trade what we have, but yet it's the opportunity to find
Yeah.
um, the good and say that it's something that's for us and not happening to us. And I mean, Lily is absolutely stunning. She's one of those women that's very striking, yet she has such a sweet light about her. Like I was,
She does. She
I
does.
mean, it
I,
was,
I would give anything if we were closer to each other space wise. But you know, she's I can't even describe to you what she is to me.
well, when I think it was breakfast we had, and I think it was after I had already said something to you. And she leaned over and well, no, I leaned over and I was like, yeah, I get to I hope to interview your mom. And she's like, oh, and she's like, I mean, she was all teary-eyed, and I'm like, well, that's not you know what I mean? Like, that's a more deepening, and so we had a little bit of a conversation about what happened, and I was just like blown away. And it wasn't even to this depth of understanding. And yet, you don't so many people don't realize what life is like until they're truly tested. And you don't want to be tested. It's not like you asked for it by no means, yet you're also stronger and you look at relationships differently now.
I
And
did.
it's such a blessing.
And you know what is so ironic? I don't think when Andy died, I had experienced any friends that had lost children. But out of the 48 women that I worked with at the Capitol, 7 of them lost children after I did.
Oh,
And well, obviously, I'd been there. I
yeah.
knew how they felt.
Mhm.
People can say, "Oh, they're in a better place," and all that. That doesn't help.
No.
That does not help. What they need is someone who understands them. So that God, led me to them, and I'm thankful. I mean, if something like this happens to you, that's what you need to do is reach out to people. That's why we have such a strong bond with women because they can do that.
Hmm.
Men don't do that. Men are so self, they have to be themselves. I don't even know what to say about them,
Well,
but
I
anyway.
think it's like the book, Men Are Like Waffles and Women Are Like Spaghetti. Like that's a good visual. Like they're very
And we're all over the place.
compartmentalized. And yeah, and we're like, woo,
Oh,
but
yeah,
that's also why we wear 17 hats and we have the babies.
that's right. I agree.
I was talking to my son the other day. He's 13 and he had said something about his sister and he was like, "Has that thing started for her yet?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, she's kind of crabby." And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I just don't quite understand how God decided all this." And I was like, "Listen, I got
Believe
a
me,
list
I
of
don't
questions.
either.
I have a list of questions when I get to heaven to
I
ask
know.
God,
You know what one
like,
of mine is? Why
what?"
didn't you make us get better as we got older instead of worse? Because, that's when we have time to enjoy it, you know, but because,
Well, well, maybe there's some things that I have for you that will give you that outlook to be
I
better
mean, I
versus.
realize you need it when you have it, but you need it later too.
Yeah.
Falling
Well,
apart is not fun.
no, no. I definitely, and I would say there's some really interesting things that I've learned that can be those tools. And like this right here, I believe more women get to hear other women's stories and then they realize they're not alone.
Yeah,
And then they realize that we are stronger together and that we can learn and grow from our experiences. And that's what you chose into. You could have very easily said, nah, I've been to plenty of those things. I'm just going to stay home. And now you are better. You are better
I
because of
am.
it.
I
You're
am.
absolutely better.
Yes.
But you had to get out of your comfort zone. And thank God it was only an hour away, which is why I'm considering doing Hearts of Beauty in Michigan because I think it's so special. We have other ones. The closest I have is Ohio, which is 4 hours away. It's not terrible,
Yeah.
but I can see the value of having something here that women would be able to drive to.
So how do you go about getting that started up there?
Well, I had to do some investigating and I had to talk to Taylor. She's the behind the scenes at Oklahoma. So she gave me some directives and there's a number of prerequisites. One is I have to attend two. So I attend the one in Oklahoma. The second one I need to attend is in Ohio. And I think there's an actual interview process because they need to make sure I'm understanding and
Yeah.
of how this works and the value that we protect some of the things that we do that a lot of people want to know every minute of every hour in the schedule, and that's not how that works. We didn't even get an outline, but
Yeah. It was
but
kind of,
more,
yeah.
yeah, but that's also the greatest part of the flexibility to be able to adapt, which is some of our personalities don't really enjoy the adapting. That might
Right.
have been mine a little bit. But I also just had to trust the process. And that was part of it is understanding that, we didn't need to. It was a directive. And what I really liked about it was it wasn't their first event. So even though it might be my first event here in Michigan, there's a years of succession and reasons why they do what they do, and they have to make sure that I am going to follow that because that's what it's meant to do. Now, I do a lot of my events very similarly in the sense of being able to really reach women is what I've specialized in. Yet this one was this was different in a number of different exercises that we did. And at one point, I was sitting in the very back of the room with my girlfriend Tamra, where we've known each other for 29 years. And we were sitting back kind of being the wise women where we're like, oh yeah, we've done
Mhm.
that, we're good. And then all of a sudden it was that moment where we looked at each other, tears
Uh,
down our face, and we're like, here we go,
yeah.
because it was at a depth that was very special. And
Yeah, there, well, it
it
was
was
deep.
Yes, it was awesome. So this is perfect. Let's go to the questions.
Okay.
What is the most important lesson you've learned on your journey to success? Maybe life and business.
Okay. These were hard for me since I'm not in the space that you guys are in, most of you, but this is where I came up with.
Okay.
Um, that you can't do it alone, period. It is necessary to have God, of course, but you also need your Christian warriors with you, beside you, lifting you up when you feel defeated and weak, which I had many of. If you're open and honest with your feelings to people that that we trust and love, they will be there for you. I was so fortunate to have had that throughout my life. The most wonderful, loving family and friends that literally saved me many, many times. I've tried to be that help to others that are going through something I've experienced and truly understand where they are. Being a loving friend is so important. Sometimes God will put something on your heart that He wants us to do, and that maybe still may be painful, but He will lighten your burden toward every time. That's my answer.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. I love that you came into this completely prepared and yet not prepared. You were prepared with what you have written
Well,
and
it
ready.
took me a week to get to this.
Aw.
Seriously, I worked on it at different times. I wrote it out, and then I, typed it up, and I don't know if I'm doing what she wants, but
Oh
anyway,
no, it's more beautiful than you realize because this is where I've known running my own business from such a young age that the different companies that I've represented over the years, there's been five reasons why women even, like yours was a need for finance, right? Like you had to make that change, unfortunately, but fortunately you could. And you had a beautiful environment. I think we said before we started to hit the record button, where you're so thankful for that support system
oh
that
yes,
you had. And it was beautiful. And what is sad, I think, today is even though we have this beautiful technology, it's a support system. It's annoying as heck sometimes when it doesn't work and there's so many bells and
not the same as person to person,
no, it's
touch to
not
touch.
for sure. And what I think is really interesting is that what I know to be true is the five reasons would be finances, personal development, fun, community, and then the freedom and flexibility to have something of your own. And that's in working, education, school, businesses, it's all the things. But what's interesting is you started for the money, yet what you got that you didn't expect was that community.
Yeah,
And I think that nowadays, even though we have access to so much technology, we as women, and I know this because I've created something for it, we're lacking community. We're absolutely lacking that support system. I mean, I'm sitting here right now looking out my door. I can't see a human or a house. We're so fortunate we have some land, but we don't have a neighbor. We don't neighborhood. We don't have a community system that I could call up somebody down the street. It's not like that right now. And so I've had to create something of my own that could do that. But what you first started with is we can't do it alone. And so
yeah,
many times we're so ambitious and very, oh, I got it. I got it. I got it. Well, we do, yet we're better together. There's so much
yeah.
better.
Well, so that was hard for me because my whole thing was I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to, be a stay-at-home mother, which I was for a while. And the problem during our early years of marriage was my husband. When we got married, his parents insisted, mind you, that I go to work and support him while he finished school. And I mean, I quit school, went to work, and John finished his degree, got his master's degree. So you can start to picture this. He worked all day, went to school at night, and he was at church every other free minute. He didn't have time to attend the boys' sports. He was never there. And when he was there, they got so nervous because he was there that they played bad.
Mm,
I mean, it was just such a shock for him to see him there. But he was only there like enough time to get them all upset, and then he was gone. Had to go study or go to church or whatever. So, you know, I have to say that um, this was all kind of new to me, and so what made me think, because we were being put into this Baptist church that they, stressed your submissive wife role, that John traveled like every other week, or not all the time, but sometimes he was gone for a week. When he was gone, in my mind, this is what I thought a good wife would do. She would clean the house before he came home. She would mow the yard. Everything would be done so he wouldn't have to do any of that stuff. You know what I found out when we were going through our divorce? He resented that I mowed the yard. You know why? Because what would the neighbors think? That why didn't he do it? Why wasn't he out there doing it? Why was I doing it? And I'm thinking, what? That never entered my mind. I was thinking, I'm going to get all this done. He's going to have all this free time when he gets home. And he resented it all those years. And I didn't even know it
Mhm.
until we were going through our divorce. So communication is another thing. You know, you've got to have it,
Isn't
because
it?
this kind of stuff just builds and builds and builds. And when he started thinking of things that made him mad, there it was.
Well, and it's completely the opposite because here you are wanting him to come home and spend time with the kids
Right.
and not have to look at all those things, but instead he's angry for the
Yeah.
complete opposite of, I'm sure there's certain things you didn't mind doing, but there's certain things that
Yeah.
you didn't need to do or want to do.
Yeah, I didn't mind doing them. In fact, it made me feel good to think that he wasn't going to have to come home after a hard week of being gone to
Mhm.
do them. But, that's the difference between the way a woman thinks and a man thinks. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that communication piece, like you said, makes a big difference.
and I guess we didn't communicate very well.
Well, and I think that that's a realization. I keep writing these little notes to myself about a book I'm going to write, and it's going to be Choose Wisely. Because when you choose wisely for yourself and understand what communication you start off with, and that's what we don't have anymore. We don't have actual, almost like a premarital prep and understanding of what it means to blend a family,
Yeah.
and then you end up with like it sounds like your love language is acts of service, and that was definitely not his because he didn't see that service that you were
No,
doing for him,
right.
you know,
His acts of service was, on what he did at church and, work and his,
doing
his
things.
success there.
Yeah,
It wasn't, it wasn't with us. So,
no. Such a good learning experience. And thank God that you were courageous enough to say, this isn't gonna change.
well, believe me, I am one of the things that I can tell people with all honesty is when you're going through a divorce, you can have people telling you, you need to, just kick him out. You need to do that. You can only do what you can do
Hmm.
where you are emotionally, and where you had the strength. So I put up with it for a long time thinking he's just going through a midlife crisis. He was like 42 years old. I thought, well, he's going through an early midlife crisis.
Hmm.
And so I kept thinking, he's going to come to his senses. His parents, they just about disowned him. And I didn't give up until, little by little, things kept happening that would just chip away at my love for him until finally I thought, when I realized that I couldn't take it anymore, I had taken the kids to Salt Lake City where he lived for a week or whatever, and a weekend. I think they were going skiing or something. Anyway, I went up there with them, and then I came home. And on the plane, I got on the plane, and I thought I could just feel it lifting off of me. I thought I can't. I'm done. It's over. I can't.
There's your time.
I couldn't live with him again if I forced myself to. It was just that whole thing I had been carrying around for that year and a half. The last straw had finally come, and I felt so good, and I knew. I mean, it was crystal clear. No, this won't ever work again. There's too much gone. It's too much has happened,
Hmm.
and you know, I just it was certainly a moment that I will never forget, because it was a relief.
Yeah. Well, and I
But
think,
what really makes me mad is, here he kept saying, well, she has these two little kids and I'm thinking, and you have two kids too. What
right,
about your
right.
sons?
Yeah.
You remember you
Ours.
have those two?
Mhm.
And, everything he said was so hurtful. She would call here in the, at night, or we'd be in bed. If I answered the phone, she hung up. If he answered the phone, they talked. It was just stuff like that. It was like, why, I pray, I mean, I wished I had been able to be stronger and, just say, look, be tough and say, you're not going to do this to me, it's over. But
Yeah.
I had to mean it. And I took me a long time to get to that point where I meant it. But when
Well,
I meant it, I meant it.
yeah. Well, and that was a beautiful part is I always teach ABC, awareness before change. And you were aware, and then you finally had that place where you're like, it's time to change. I'm not going to do this anymore. You hit your limit.
Yeah, I certainly did. I'm a slow learner, but I learned. But,
Wow.
you know,
Somebody would might say a year and a half was not slow. That could have, that goes by really fast.
oh, it does. Faster now than it used to, I might
I know.
add. Just be beware.
I know. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But the funny, it's not funny, but John's parents had two sons. Neither one lived here, and his parents lived in Holdenville, which is 90 miles from here. And I was very, very close to his mother, and she taught me so much, and I just loved her. And after they were on my side to begin with, but blood is thicker than water, and so at the time that when they found out I was getting married, you know, their whole attitude changed, you know, and they um, didn't support me anymore like they did. And so it was hurtful. But for 5 years, we didn't speak, and that really hurt. But um, John's grandmother passed away, and after all this time, he called me and told me. He said, Meemaw passed away. I know she wants you to be at the funeral if you want to come. So I went and saw his whole family, first time in years, and it was the weirdest experience. His new wife was there, and I felt so bad for her because when I got there and got out of the car, his cousins, his aunts, his uncles, his mother, his dad, everybody came rushing to me. Oh, we're so happy to see you. And Amanda was standing over in the corner and just, like, hmm, because they never have really accepted her too much like they should have. And she and Martha did not, that's his mother, did not mix. And so she never wanted to go there. So she never really had a close relationship with his mom. And what I'm getting to is the boys were both away. John was in Florida. His brother was in Austin. And so when his parents started having health problems, who do you think they called? Because no one else was around. And, I was happy to do it. But, it just seemed, oh, it was a blessing to me, honestly. I mean, I loved it that they, called me. But the beauty of it was that my husband now was okay with it. You know, he supported me in that. He went with me. They liked him too. And after the fact, after years. But anyway, life is funny. God just prepares, things for us that, we don't know's coming. And it really is. I actually happened to be, John called me when his mom was, well, I called him when his mom went to the hospital and said, you better come because, it's not looking good. And so he came, and then she got worse. And so he called me that morning and said, Mom's not doing good. You want to come down. The doctor says it's not going to be long. So went down there, and my son was there with his family. And it was John and me and Chris and his family. And, I got to talk to her at the very end. She was so ready to go see her husband and to get this over with. So, but it's just weird because John's wife wasn't with him. It's just it was weird, but it made me happy that I was a part of it, I guess. But anyway, when you have good relationships with people, you don't lose them over something like a divorce. It's just they're there, and so,
Yeah. Well, and I think it's that conflict resolution that sometimes people are so fearful of having, you know, that open conversation or, you know what I mean? Like, you'd love to change the past, but you can't. So you
You
just
know,
move forward with the best of what you
you just
have.
go with what you got. That's right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, you want to
So,
go to
what would you,
question two?
yes, let's do question two. How do you maintain focus and clarity on your vision, especially when you're faced with challenges or self-doubt?
Well, I don't even know if this even fits that, but I'm going to tell you what I wrote. Well, I always have to ask God for strength and wisdom, no matter what it is. I have many kind of repeat all this a little bit because this is what really stands out to me. I have many Christian women friends that I like to look up to, strive to be more like. I'm sure you know the ones that have the sweet, loving spirit that shows in their eyes and smile. You can feel God in their being,
Mhm.
and they always seem to have the words that can bring a peace about you. I feel I feed off of positive, godly people, so that is the kind of people I try to surround myself with. Atlanta.
It's beautiful, beautiful. And such a reminder that, we have his DNA. Yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So, what daily habits or practices have been a key to your personal growth and achieving your goals?
Hmm. Okay. Well, uh, at this point in my life, family is my main goal. Of course, being here for them, sharing in their achievements and even their disappointments, cherishing every day that God gives us is first. And I want to leave as many great memories for them as I can. Memories of happy times and lots of laughs,
Hmm.
which we do have lots of laughs.
Well, that's the most important.
You know, they won't replace someone, but they keep them alive in your heart and are great medicine when you need a smile. I always feel like my son is watching me from heaven and smiling back at me.
Always, always. You have a special guardian angel.
Yes, I do. And he leaves me feathers.
Does he? Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
And
I went to I went to a class, an event, and the woman was talking about that. She had major tragedy. And literally, I went to the event, it was Thursday night. The next morning, I had a feather this big in my garage. Like I walked by it. It was one of those where I was like, and thought,
uh-huh.
what in the world is that? And it literally gave me the chills.
I have two boxes full of feathers that he sent me. And the reason that well, I have this feather on that Lily got me because every time I do something with her or about her, I have that to wear that. Um, her mother, Lily and her mother and I were sitting on the front porch after, whoops, where'd you go? After Andy's funeral. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this perfect little white feather just floated down in front of us. And I looked at it, and I mean, it's perfect. It's about this big. And it's just, and so that's what started it. So I saved it. I have a little, maybe not a shrine, but it's a little thing on the table, and I have a little heart box that has this feather in it, and next to his picture. And so ever since then, if we have a family gathering, sometimes I find a feather in the doorway or somewhere, just somewhere where, of course, it could just be there for any reason, but for my reason, it's for Mandy. And I find them all the time. I just collected them over the years, and so,
I
anyway,
love it. That's beautiful. So beautiful.
yep.
So, if you could give one piece of advice to women stepping into their power, achieving their best lives, what would it be?
Don't forget who you are. Let God's love shine through you. Be a woman that people trust because you are honest, caring, and dependable. Be the friend that will always be available in a time of need. The friend that is like a warm blanket that wraps them around God's love. We all need a friend like that, don't you think?
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And don't we all love our blinkies?
Yes, yes. I was sure glad I had mine at the conference.
Me too. Me too.
Oh,
Yeah. I actually didn't pack it in my bag, but I asked both my friends to bring a cozy blanket, and the one brought me one that was very close to the one that I was going to bring.
oh, well,
It's like, oh, I love fuzzy blankets. And
I would have frozen to death in there if I hadn't remembered that blanket.
I know that extra, like you said, that extra comfort. So, lastly, how do you balance ambition and rest, ensuring that you stay aligned with your values and avoid burnout?
Okay, this is easy.
Okay.
Well, I'm in such a different place than most of this group. I've been retired for 15 years, and my life is so low key now that I don't even have a problem with getting 10 hours of sleep a night or doing things that are at a much slower pace, and even just sitting for hours. I did have to adjust to this at first, but God has a way of slowing us down, even if we don't want to. In my mind, I still think I'm able to do all the things I've always done. But believe me when I tell you that my body tells me absolutely not. So, so I don't think it would be bad to get old if your body just would not get old with you.
Right.
So
Right. That's
that's
good. Well, I think it's at any age we must listen to ourselves.
so. Anyway, I didn't, like I said, didn't really know what to expect from what you wanted. You said you were going to call me and interview me. I thought it was just going to be, we were going to chat like this. But um, anyway,
It's
that's
beautiful. I love it. It's such an inspiration to hear your story, how you've maneuvered through life, the goods, the bads, and the extras unexpected, like the funeral that you decided to go to and how beautiful that was. And, you
well.
got to go with your husband and
I wish you could have seen his funeral in Phoenix. He had quit his job. He had a good job and lived in Kansas City. He quit his job because he wanted to go to Harley motorcycle mechanic school. He had gotten a Harley. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a motorcycle mechanic. Okay, so they have a school in Phoenix. That's how he ended up in Phoenix. And that's where he met Lily. He had just graduated a month. Oh, no, it was 2 weeks before he died. It was after they got married. He graduated from that, and he had a an interview in Oceanside, California. It was Labor Day weekend when he died, and he was leaving the next morning to go to Oceanside for this interview, and he didn't ever make it. But he was the happiest he'd ever been. He was doing what he wanted to do. He was married to Lily, and she had a 3-year-old at that. He was now a father. Everything was happening for him. That's why it was so hard. It was just like, why? He'd had some hard years. When he was growing up. He rebelled a lot after our divorce, and we had some. In my mind, I'm thinking if he makes it to 30, we're good. Well, he was 32. He made it, and so I said, oh, you never know. But
mm-hmm.
anyway, I wanted to show you this at Mother's Day. Right? Can you see this?
Hmm.
Okay, my stepdaughter sent me this. She ordered it online. It's called Kind Notes,
Kind notes. Okay.
and so it has all these. You're supposed to look at one of these a day. So I picked out three that I wanted to share. Um, don't forget to love yourself. You are amazing. Remember that.
Hmm.
Of all the things you wear, your smile is the most important. And this is the last one. No beauty shines brighter than that of a good heart.
Hmm. Oh, that's so beautiful.
I know. So I thought, well,
Oh, that's perfect. Like you didn't know, yet you knew. That's like the perfect way to end our interview in something so kind, special, and something that can pay it forward to another woman.
I hope so. I mean, I don't
Absolutely.
know. I tried my best.
I exceeded my expectations.
Oh, good.
And we got to have a beautiful backdrop. It almost doesn't look real.
I know. Well, it is. And I mean, it's so peaceful out here. The pool's right here. This is my place. I can sit out here until it gets hot in the afternoon and never miss a beat.
I love
So,
it. And I got to see the reason you didn't turn on your fan was the birds, and I could see them coming and going. I'm
oh,
like,
could you? Oh, good. Yeah.
yeah.
The mother and dad, I mean, it's like a relay thing. They come, they go. She's gotten so skinny because they say I read up on 'em. They fly. They can fly up to 100 miles a day, getting
Good.
worms for the babies. I mean, they are in, they're out, they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out, and it's like one of them will sit on the fence, and when one of them leaves, the other one comes. It's like
Mhm.
so amazing to watch them.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
God's creation is pretty amazing.
I know. And well, anyway,
Thank you.
you're
Thank you.
welcome. I'm sorry. Sunday I was gonna come and do whatever it is you do on Sunday on that Zoom thing. Is it just like this?
Yep, yep, yep. Well,
Okay.
we'll talk about that, but we'll end this here and then I'll give you all this behind the scenes.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
Good.
thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome.